chill out? Say, maybe they left already. Just waiting for us back at the house. Now.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fanboy Planet. Got a special guest today, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. Got writer, actor, producer, stand-up comedian, and survivor, Bill Posley. Bill, welcome.
What's up? Welcome. Thank you.
Now, I talked to you on the podcast when we met at CineQuest maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, man.
It's been a while.
It's been a lot. It's crazy you said that. I was like, wow. Yeah, it was like 2 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that was just a couple years. Oh, wow. No, that was a while ago.
With your short film, We Know Where You Live. And now you've got a new one. You've got an Indiegogo campaign. I'm going to put this up so people know, for a new horror film called Bitch Ass.
Yes.
So, I don't know if I put the emphasis right, but it looks terrific. So it's a campaign to the trailer is magnificent. I mean that, it's the campaign is to help finish post-production. So let me ask, right off the bat, you call this the first black masked serial killer, and I was trying to challenge it in my head, and I admit I'm not like, I got friends that are deeper into it than I am, but yeah, I couldn't argue with it. So what was the genesis of this project?
Bro, and I'm open to all challenge. This is not, like, because we looked. Like, please believe me, I looked, and I still have yet to find it. Now, to say that it doesn't exist is like, in some dark archives somewhere there might be one, or in some very fringe cult movies there may be one, but there definitely has not been one on the main in the mainstream.
Has not broken through to cult state.
Right.
Yeah.
And so basically what I've kind of classified and kind of like boiled it down to is there has not been a masked serial killer of color to have their own Halloween costume, right? And so what the genesis of that was just, I've been obsessed with hood horror movies from the 90s since I was a kid. Like, I grew up watching that stuff, like People Under the Stairs, Leprechaun 4 in the Hood, Tales from the Hood. I was just obsessed with those movies, and then they just stopped in the 90s. That was like kind of it. I think there was like, there was like a Tales from the Hood 2 or something like that, or like the Wayans brothers did like Scary Movie, but there wasn't really anything that it like hit that or anything original that had hit that again in a way that found me, at least. Since then, I believe that Thriller came out on Netflix, which is a movie that does take place in a black neighborhood. But that came out, I think, either this year or last year or something recent, but not at the time I started writing the film. And so, and again, it was like went under the radar. I had no idea it existed. And so I've always wanted to do that again. I wanted to make a movie in a black neighborhood. I wanted to make a serial killer that was a black killer, and I wanted them to wear a mask. And so I wanted to like homage the time period. I wanted to homage the genre, especially with like, great, auteurs like, Jordan Peele, kind of breaking genre and exploring genre with people of color. I felt like no better time for the iron to strike than now. And even with that said, like, you know, Jordan Peele, like, hero, dude, like, straight up hero of mine. But also, like, you know, Get Out, the majority of the cast is white. And even in Us, you know, it was a, like, you know, middle class to upper middle class Black family. And I really wanted to return to a story that took place in a Black neighborhood, you know, in a neighborhood that, you know, typically stories like this don't take place, where the villain isn't, you know, white, you know, and the villain of this movie is a person of color, and like nobody in the movie talks about it. Like, we never say anyone's Black ever, like, ever. It's just like a Black cast just living their lives. Like, we never even make mention of it. And like, I don't know. I just wanted to try that, you know?
Yeah. And the premise is that he's a child who's bullied. I mean, so it's definitely cut from the cloth of many kinds of slasher films we've heard. I mean, that's Jason. That's, I don't think Mike Myers is psychotic from the get-go, but the description makes me feel like, oh yeah, I totally get how this kid turns and why.
Right.
With a little bit of sympathy. On your Indiegogo page, you also reference like a tribute to Meteor Man, which is one I have every issue of the comic. You know, so I was thinking about that too, of like, you know, definitely setting it in. So I don't have to ask what the inspirations are, because you've just laid them out. But one of the things that I realized about this is, I was watching the trailer a couple of times, is you set it in 1999.
Yes.
So it's a period piece. And I was like going, no. 1999 is not a period piece. That's like a year ago, 2 years ago.
I know, bro. Isn't it crazy that this thing, that's 21 years ago?
So why did you set it in that time frame?
So I set it in that time frame for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to, again, homage the time and that period in time, which I loved, and the films that I love coming out of that. The other reason I did it is because you know, this takes place on like gang initiation nights. In a gang initiation night, the kind that I wanted to kind of portray was, you know, really prevalent when I was a kid growing up. Like, we would be afraid of like a gang initiation night, or you know, I remember the every kid's parents on Halloween, at least in my neighborhood, was like, hey, you can't be trick-or-treating too late. It's Halloween. It's a gang initiation night, you know? And not to say that those things weren't real, or to downplay them or anything like that, but it really, really felt like the type of story I wanted to tell took place back then, you know? Also, I really wanted to, you know, remove the cell phone and remove the, you know, the more contemporary methods of making my storytelling difficult. So some of it was just out of sheer laziness of explaining how people can't just call their way out of a situation. But honestly, the majority of it was like just the pure love of the time, pure love of the era, and wanting to really lean into that, because it was, you know, my time growing up, my era growing up.
Yeah, and of course, you know, should there be a Bitch Ass 2 or Bitch Ass Returns, you could move forward in time, I suppose. And so, yeah, and you shot this during a pandemic. So I got to ask, there are easier times to say, you know what, this is when I'm going to make my feature. And so why now?
I didn't want to wait anymore. I think that was a big part of it. You know, I saw the window, and, you know, I figured there wasn't going to be too much content that was going to be made during the pandemic. And so I would have an opportunity to, it's so hard to compete in the festival circuit, and it's so hard to compete in the distribution market, just because people with a lot of money can make things better than you can. And so we didn't have much, you know. I raised about 200K, somewhere between 200 and 225. You know, we raised about that much money, and you know, we already knew that we were gonna have to commit almost $25,000 of that to COVID testing, which sucks because it's almost a tenth of your budget gone. And when you're low budget, that's every dollar counts. But I knew that I could get really good deals on things because everything was kind of shut down and people weren't using things. So that was a big part of it. And we shot it, like 3 months ago. So that was March. So things were a little better. We had like maybe two people were vaccinated or had taken a half of a shot at that time. So things were a little bit better, but really it was just like, it felt like the opportunity to strike was now. And that like, if I could come out of it, if I could come out of COVID with a fully produced feature film, I would have, there's no better time for me than right now to have an opportunity to get it seen. And so I wanted to take that chance.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I was going to ask what was the biggest challenge, but it seems like the testing, it's something I wouldn't have even thought of in terms of budgeting. That's amazing. So as I said, you've got a trailer up there on the Indiegogo page, and it looks slick. It looks suspenseful. And even if I didn't know you, and I freely admit this, I have not seen anything from you that I have not absolutely loved. And so, I'm a fan. But if I didn't know you, I still would have been impressed as a horror fan from that trailer. Like I got it. I got a sense of where it was, and it looked cool. So what does the Indiegogo campaign buy you or get you that that bitch ass still needs?
So yeah, I mean, once you get into post, it's a lot of like, man, it's a lot of tedious little things, right? And so like, part of the reason why we're putting this together is, yes, because of that testing, we ended up going over budget, but also because of us being, so the original production schedule was 11 days. Shooting a feature film in 11 days is a feat and a task in and of itself. But, unforeseen things like testing slowed everything down, right? I would have to break. I'd have to take a break in the middle of a shoot day and send the entire cast and crew to a testing, not off location, but, we'd have to do rolling testing over the course of this 1 hour period. So, it would slow things down, and, getting locations prepared, people having to be 6 feet away from each other, making sure everybody was it. So it just slowed everything down. And because of that, we ended up having to add a pickup day, a 12th day. And so that ate into my post budget, as did over expenses for testing. And so things like visual effects, composing, sound mixing, color, just the pure edit, all of those things still need to be done on the film. We have we have an editor editing, for sure, and working on the project so that way we can get it cut. But when they're done, I need to get it over to these other departments and get it, finished. And so I need to, make sure I can compensate those people for their work. And that's basically what the money is for. There's no, no making no bones about it. Like if you go to the Indiegogo, we show you exactly like what each budgetary, cost is for everything. And like, those are the deals that we've like already made. And so I'm excited and everybody's really excited. And we are like, I've never been, so close on anything this big before. So getting it over the finish line would be amazing.
Yeah. And so again, below me right here is the link. And so please, go check out the page. It's, as you said, it lays out everything. I just wanted to call it out for the interview so people know. And before we go, I want to talk about the previous project that I was aware of, that I'd seen a couple of times live. And I know you won an Off-Broadway award for your one-man show. And when we met, you were telling me, hey, this show's coming up. And I went and loved it. The Day I Became Black. you have future plans for this? Because I think more people should see it, and it's a brilliant show.
I do. So yeah, you know, it was one of those things where everybody has a COVID story that COVID put a pause button on, right? Or something that for some people it's their wedding. You know, for some people
that was
it was
mine. Yes, I had a pause on my
yes,
wedding.
yeah. So for some people it was their wedding. For some people it was like a huge vacation that they always wanted to do. You know, for some people it was moving or relocating or whatever. For me, it was on literally March 13th, the shutdown day. I had a live performance of The Day It Became Black here in LA that people from like Netflix and like all these people were coming to, and it shut down. But even still, even if it was that, it wasn't like I was going to be able to shoot it anytime during the year anyway.
Yeah.
And then over the course of that year, George Floyd, BLM, elections, like just so much happened that at the beginning of this year, in looking at how to put the show back up and get a fire under myself, lit under myself to get it going, it made me realize that I needed to update the show, right? I needed to, you know, and none of the content in my show was outdated or anything like that, but there were some talking points that needed to be you know, injected into this version of it because of where we stood as a country now, as opposed to when I created the show, right? So like when I initially created the show, it was, you know, after Eric Gardner and Trayvon Martin, and like, you know, it was originally written around like 2018 to 2017 somewhere. Sorry, why did I go backwards? It was originally created in like 2017, 2018 in the form that we know of it now. And so it was making a commentary on that particular point in time. And there wasn't, you know, really a worldwide sense of what was going on in the same way that there was this past year. And so in knowing that, I felt like what needed to happen was, my show was about educating people about what was going on. And not to say that people still don't need education. They do. However, they're a more intelligent audience around the issues than the audiences I was performing for before. And so keeping that in mind, how do I adjust my show or update my show to, you know, talk to an audience at a higher intelligence about these issues than the ones that I was performing in front of? And so I gave myself the task to go back through and update and rework and see if I can come out of it with a version of the show that feels now and feels a little bit more a little bit that takes into consideration what we've all just gone through as a country, what black people have gone through as a race, and what this country has gone through around that issue. And so that's what I've been doing for the past like 5 or 6 months. And I am basically in July, the weekend, an upcoming weekend in July. I think we haven't had the dates locked or anything like that, but I'm going to be shooting a kind of like a sizzle reel of a few scenes from this new version, like the new stuff, and trying to see if I can drum up some interest to show what the show can be now. And I'm really excited to like do that and like take that on. And like this one has a little bit more of like a narrative through line. Obviously mine already did have like a narrative through line, my life, but there's a construct, without giving too much away, that opens and closes the show about the growth of me as a character through it. And really, I think, I hope gives people and educates people a little bit more of an insight into kind of the thought process of a person of color experiencing some of what we experienced last year. That it isn't all just that it isn't all just like we got out, we protested, we were happy, we did our thing, let's go home. It was a lot of conflict and inner arguments and wondering where I stand within these issues and how do I best represent myself and this movement, and like kind of the questions that come up when something like that arises, and having, I think comedic commentary on it, but I hope that translates. I hope I did a good enough job. I'm scared because, usually I would work this material for months. You know what I mean? I would get up and I would work it and I would work it. And we're kind of shooting it raw without there being any test audience or anything. This is really just kind of what I think a good version of this is. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited to introduce these concepts to the world, to my next audience, whatever.
That's terrific. That's terrific. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that, and I know I'll talk about it again to my audience. So once again, it's Bitch Ass. The link is here down below me. I'll figure out like my spacing someday.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for taking the time, Bill. It's always a pleasure to talk.
You too, man, Derek. Thank you so much, and come.
Tonight is y'all's initiation. The rich old bitch down the street has finally kicked the bucket. So you are going to break in and rob the place.
What about a grandson? Doesn't he still live there?
I grew up with the fat fuck in that house. Trust me when I say he's a bitch.
I do not want you hanging out with those 6th Street assholes.
I can't help it if your son doesn't stay away from me.
Where is he?
Will you chill out? Say, maybe they left already. They're just waiting for us back at the house.
Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet videos. And remember, use your powers for good.